is we will have our first discussion related to fluid mechanics. So we will not be doing any calculations yet today, but I would like to give you an overview of the scope or the reach of fluid mechanics in general. So I will be presenting the basic concepts of fluid mechanics, what is fluid mechanics, its branches, as well as a handful of applications that fluid mechanics that you may encounter using fluid mechanics if ever you are interested to take a career related to fluid mechanics. Okay? Next, I will be discussing the rationale or the reasoning behind some groupings for online or face-to-face reportings, as well as my idea on how to do your citation. And if you have tried some techniques or some setups before in your previous classes, please share them also. So who knows, maybe that method is more efficient or more easier for you compared to what I have in mind. Okay? Lastly, to end the class, we will revisit significant digits because as I told you yesterday, most of the time I would specify the number of significant decimal digits which you will provide in your problem solving. So I'll just have a review of significant digits, how to count, what to consider in writing significant digits, as well as a quick activity using Google Classroom to test because I have not used the question feature of Google Classroom yet. So I would like later to have a sample or a quick activity using Classroom questions in Google Classroom. So if some of you are not yet part of the Google Classroom for our class, please join because if you are not in the classroom, then you will not see the question being posted there earlier or being posted there later. Okay, so we start with fluid mechanics. So fluid mechanics, by its name, has two fundamental concepts. One is fluid, which we already know is a collective term for both liquids and gases. Mechanics, on the other hand, is more uh, complicated. Okay? Mechanics is the area of math and physics that is concerned with the relationships between force, matter, and motion among physical objects. Okay? Force, if you recall your physics classes, force is an effort, a push or a pull, to try to change the state of an object. When you say try to change the state, it means if an object is moving, if or if an object is at rest or not moving, applying a force will exert an effort to move the object or to make it start to move. Okay? If the object is moving already, then applying a force will exert an effort to change the behavior of motion or in some cases even stop the motion from happening. Okay? So that's your force. Matter, in the other hand, is where you apply your force, and it is a measurement of how many molecules or atoms are in a body. Okay? Some references would also define matter as the amount of inertia an object has. Okay? So inertia, by definition, is the amount of resistance to force. Okay? It means if you have a larger mass, matter is also synonymous to mass. Okay? You often hear it as mass of an object. which is basically amount of matter in an object. So if you have a larger mass or amount of matter, then you would need a larger force to make it start moving. Or if the object is already in motion, then you still need a larger force to stop it from moving. Right? If you have a small amount of matter or small mass, then you do not need a lot of force to make it stop or to make it move. Right? And that relationship between force and matter results to its behavior of motion. Right? Larger force on a smaller matter or mass will result to a larger motion. Small force applied to a large mass will result to very little or no motion at all. Right? So there are relationships governing these three concepts: force, matter, and motion. And the relationships between them is dictated by the famous Einstein equation F equals ma, or force equals mass times acceleration. Right? Acceleration there is a representation of your motion because a mass, if the mass is accelerating, then it is in motion. If the mass is not accelerating, then it is not moving at all. Okay? So this relationship F equals ma is the basic. This is what we study basically when we talk about mechanics, the relationship of these three concepts in among physical objects. Now, mechanics, or or I would simply call it F equals ma, can be applied for solids, liquids, and gases. Okay? But liquids and gases, I will collectively call them fluids. Okay? So when I say fluids, I mean both liquids and gases. So it means mechanics, or F equals ma, can be applied to solid objects. So what are examples of this? So this is your box on the table, maybe ball rolling on a floor. This is also your box sliding in an inclined plane with friction, without friction. This is your train running down the rail track. Okay, this is your car running through the road. Okay, so these are examples of how F equals ma relationship applies to solid objects. Okay, fluid mechanics is just the same. F equals ma, but now applied to objects in liquid and gas states. So examples of this: water flowing in the river, or maybe water flowing down your faucet, or maybe rain falling from the sky, or air being blown by the electric fan. Right? So these examples, they both solid mechanics and fluid mechanics try to describe how F equals ma relationship applies to objects. However, solid mechanics focuses on the application in solids, and fluid mechanics focuses in the application of the same equation F equals ma to liquids and gases. So that's the difference of fluid mechanics versus solid mechanics. So, solid mechanics, so that's if you have taken the courses about SRB, statics of rigid bodies, and DRB, dynamics of rigid bodies, and even MDB, mechanics of deformable bodies. So all of those are part of solid mechanics. And now, fluid mechanics, we will be applying the same concepts that we learned in those courses, but now changing the object of concern into liquids and gases. Okay. Any question in this definition? Just a moment because okay, my keyboard is not working. Just a moment. Okay, so let's continue. Before we go forward, let's just do a quick differentiation between solids, liquids, and gases. The common term that you encounter during your SRB and DRB days as the word rigid. Okay, rigid means that the object is capable of keeping its shape uh, on its own. Okay, solid objects are generally rigid. It means if you have a ball, a round ball, even if you place it in a square box, it will not change its shape into a square or a cube. It will remain to be a round ball. For liquids and gases, does not happen because liquids and gases always take the shape of their container. This also shows that solids have a fixed shape and is not dependent on the container it is in. However, for liquids and gases, they have no fixed shape and they are able to adapt to the shape or the contour of the container they are placed in. However, even if both liquids and gases do not have fixed shape or follow the shape of their container, there is still a difference between them such that liquids have a fixed volume and gases do not have a fixed volume. Okay? Solids, I think it's clear that solids have a fixed volume. Like what this means is if a box, if I have a box of donuts with me, even if I place it in a large table or a larger table, the box of donuts will not increase its volume or become larger on its own. Okay? It has a fixed volume. No matter where you put it, it will stay the same size, same shape, same weight. Okay? It, it holds on its own, basically. Liquids, they change their shape, but they have a fixed volume also. What does this mean? It means, for example, I have one can of Coca-Cola. I have one can of Coca-Cola. I think that is 300 ml, around 300 ml or milliliters. Even if I transfer that 300 milliliters of Coke into a 1 liter container, the amount of Coke will not increase. The volume of the Coke will not increase to 1 liter just because I put it in a larger container. The volume of the liquid will remain the same, but it will follow the shape of the larger container. So shape-wise, it will change, but volume-wise, liquids do not change, even if you transfer it to different containers. Gases, on the other hand, they do not have a fixed volume. Okay? So if I transfer 1 liter, say liter again, volume, or cubic meter. If I have 1 cubic meter of gas in a 1 cubic meter box, okay? If I transfer that 1 cubic meter of gas into a 10 cubic meter box, then the gas will expand to uh, to to fill or to use all the space in that 10 cubic meter box. Okay? So the volume of the gas is dependent on the limitation of its container. Unlike liquid, that the volume of the liquid will remain the same no matter where you place it. For gases, the volume changes when there is the gas. For gases, the volume changes depending on the container. If your container is large, then the gas will fill that full volume. If your container is small, then the gas will compress itself into that smaller volume. Okay, so no fixed volume for gases. Here are other differences, or yeah, there's differences between liquids and gases. One is their ability to compress. Liquids are difficult to compress, and we would be considering them as incompressible. Okay? Gases, it's easy to compress. Okay, the change in volume is large and is significant that we cannot neglect the change of volume in gases. So this is proven or can be shown by the diagram below. Let's start with the incompressible fluid. If I have a box of fluid here and I apply a force of 50 newtons into this fuel liquid, then I would have a volume like this one. However, if I apply a larger force, say 200 newtons, to the same liquid, I will still get the same volume of liquid in the container. So I am not able to compress the same amount of liquid into a smaller space. Okay? However, for gases, if you have 50 newtons of force, you can compress the gas on a same size of volume or same size of space. But if you apply a larger force, it will be not difficult for you to compress the gas in a smaller space or smaller volume. Okay, gases are easier to. The default of gases is to expand, but if you want to compress gases, it is not very difficult compared to liquids, which is why we are considering gases as compressible fluid. Okay, because of this ability, also this strengthens our understanding that liquids have a fixed volume. Okay, so as I said before, if you have 200 milliliters of liquid, if you transfer it to a different container, it will change shape, but it will still have the same volume of 200 milliliters. For gases, that is not always the case because if you transfer it to a larger container, then the gas will completely use all the available space. So if the space is larger, it will have a larger volume. If the space is smaller, it will have a smaller volume compared to the first location or the first container. Okay? Another concept that is very important is the idea of free surface. Remember that everything, solids, liquids, and gases, are being affected by gravity. Okay, and gravity always try to pull everything downward towards the ground or towards the earth. For gases, even if there is this pull towards the earth, if you leave an opening in the container of a gas, some particles of the gas will still try to fly away as long as there is an opening. Okay? So if you have, say, a balloon and you open the one end of the balloon, then the gas will fly away to that opening because it always have a tendency to go away from each other or go afar from each other. Okay? Liquids, ay, because of this behavior, gases, if you want to isolate them or collect them, you have to put them in a sealed container without an opening because any opening will cause the gas to leak into the atmosphere. Okay? For liquids, this does not happen or this is not necessary because liquid particles tend to stick together instead of flying away. Okay? If you put a liquid in an open container, the liquid particles will not randomly go up and mix into the air, unlike gases. Okay? This is because liquid always try to stick together, and because of gravity, the attraction of liquid will always be downward, right? Which means on the top of the liquid there will be a free surface, and this free surface is kind of the barrier or boundary between the liquid and the air around it, right? So for liquids, it is not necessary for you to seal or close this free surface because there is no risk of the liquid escaping through this open direction as long as it is on above or yeah, above the liquid. So unlike gases, you do not have to seal this portion because the free surface is enough to limit or to keep the liquid from moving up into the air. Okay? This free surface is important because later on in our following meetings, we will always check the pressure in this free surface location because this is the interface between the air and the liquid in our container. Okay? Any question with this concept? Next, okay, going back to fluid mechanics. So again, fluid mechanics, force equals mass times acceleration being studied or being applied to liquids and gases. So fluid mechanics then can be subdivided into three subcategories: your fluid statics, your fluid kinematics, and your fluid dynamics. Fluid statics is a study of fluids at rest. Okay, so whenever you have a fluid in an isolated container, as long as it's not moving, then that is under the umbrella of fluid statics. So for example, liquid in a pool, then that is fluid statics. We will study why some objects float in the water, some objects sink in the water. We will also study why at the top of the pool there is very little pressure, but under the pool you can feel a lot more pressure of the water pushing you from the outside. We will also be discussing why under water you can feel a little bit of force that is trying to push you upward to the surface. So those phenomena we will study under fluid statics. This one on the left side, we will also learn why when we hear in the news something about low pressure area is why does it happen that in low pressure areas there's a lot of wind, there's a lot of rain compared to high pressure area where there is very little wind or rain. So we will study why this happens and why we always hear it in news, in weather news. Here in the middle, we have a manometer. So this is used to measure pressure differences between two positions. So we will also study why, how this is used to check pressure differences. And don't worry because this is something very easy and fun to study. You just need to know the trick on how to read or solve for the pressure differences. And lastly, once in a while you would see examples using a piston and cylinder setup. So the piston and cylinder setup, in the piston and cylinder setup, there is fluid, usually water or oil or air, in an isolated location or space. Then the piston is there to seal the space, and we will see how pressure, temperature, volume changes within this space because as influenced by fluid mechanics. Okay? So these are the topics that we will cover for fluid statics. Any questions or clarifications? Next, fluid kinematics. So after studying fluids which are at rest, then we move on to study fluids in motion. But for the first part, we will study fluids in motion without consideration or neglecting while neglecting pressure forces. Okay? Pressure forces, when we neglect pressure forces, then what we are only considering is the effect of geometry in the fluid flow. Okay? This means we will be studying fluid flow simply based on the dimensions or the geometry of our system. So if we have a pipe, on this right side we have a pipe, then we will just be using geometry of the pipe. The diameter, the length, the material, the thickness of the pipe, and study how this will affect the flow of the fluid. We will also be discussing this one. For example, we have a flow and then we have branches. For example, we have three branches. How will the flow be distributed in these three branches? Will all they be equal? Will all they be slower or faster flow? Will all the branches have similar flow? Or is there a branch that will have a stronger flow? So these are the things that we will consider. Here below is also a pipe with fluid inside. Then we will also study how branching causes liquid or fluid to flow differently between the branches. You will see here, the portion here, the flow is lower rather than the other side. So why does that happen? What influences that phenomena? And here at the top, part of fluid kinematics is a study of the contours of airplanes, the wings of the airplanes, the design of the of the wings, the dimensions, the shape, to check how the pressure on top and the pressure at the bottom behaves because this pressure difference affects the lift or the force that pushes the plane upward. So we will study how these shapes affect the amount of lift, of the amount of force that lifts the airplane up in the air, right? So all of these, if you will notice, we will analyze them, but purely based on geometric properties. That's fluid kinematics. The next level to that will be fluid dynamics, wherein we still study the flow of fluid. We still study fluids in motion, but we are now aside from considering the geometry, we would be considering the energy, right? So the energy, because uh, this field is governed by the root thermodynamic law. Right, first thermodynamic law, which states that energy is neither created nor destroyed, which means energy is just converted into other forms. So we will use this rule or this law to analyze how energy changes in a flowing fluid or a fluid in motion. For example, here at the top, you can see I have 2 points. So we will compare at point A, what is the energy of the system? How much kinetic energy does it have? How much potential energy does it have? And then as we move on, as the fluid flows to point B, then we would compare how does the energy change? Do I now have a higher kinetic energy or do I now have a higher potential energy? What does this change do to the velocity? of my fluid. Does my fluid slow down or does my fluid's velocity go up? So these relationships will be dealt with or studied during our fluid dynamics section. So this is where you will again revisit your Bernoulli equation, which I think you have touched lightly during your physics classes. Right? That's fluid dynamics. So these three subcategories, we will be discussing them throughout the semesters. And this is how we would be scheduling them. From now to midterms, we will be studying fluid statics. So those are your everything that involves fluid at rest. And after midterms, so your midterms will be all about fluid statics. After midterms, then we move forward to fluid kinematics and fluid dynamics. So this will be our, so that you have an idea on what to expect and how, and the pacing of our discussion. This will be our division of topics for this course. Okay, any question or clarification? Okay, with all of that said, I would like us to have a quick break because those topics, even if they are just a general overview, is they still have a lot of terms and concepts to absorb. So let's have a quick break, 5-minute break, before we continue on to the next section. Okay po. So, tuloy tayo sa slides ko. Yan. Before we move forward, I would like to share you that my idea. Of course, this can still be changed if you have other ideas. I feel free to share of your groupings. So my plan is to group you into groups with 5 to 7 members each. The purpose of this grouping is because we will have online class reporting days. So these reporting days, there are times when we will plan problem solving during our online sessions. So the reporting there will be done by group, or sometimes after we have face-to-face quizzes, we will discuss the quiz on the next online meeting. Okay? So for example, next week, I think we have a face-to-face next week. So who knows? Maybe we'll have our first quiz there. So the day following that day, then we will have an online meeting to discuss how to solve the quiz. Okay? During this, I will assign one question, maybe one question per group, and then you in the group will choose among yourselves who will be the one to report that day or that instance. Sometimes only one, sometimes two persons will present, depending on how many items the problem is asking for. Right? Then you will just do that every time we will have online meetings. So you will always choose within yourselves, but of course, you have to choose different people every time. Right? By the end of the semesters, all the members of each group should have the chance to report at least twice. Because I will be, even if you are choosing among yourselves who will discuss, I am still lagging who discussed during the first time or second time. Okay? So I will know who by the end of the semester who members did not discuss at all, who discussed only once, who discussed more than twice. Okay? How to grade that reporting? It will be graded not by the correctness of the answer. Okay? Because the purpose of the reporting is for me to see how you are solving the problem. If you have a different understanding and it needs to be corrected, then we will correct it during the reporting. So no problem with that. No problem if the answer is wrong. However, what I will be checking is how are you ready? How ready is your group in the reporting? So are you reporting properly? Is your process smooth? Or maybe I noticed when I call your group, that's the only time that you will pick who will present. So that means you are not ready. Maybe sometimes also when I ask you to report, that's the only time that you will calculate. That's the only time you will press the calculator. So that means you are not ready also. Okay, so these are the things that I will check. The content or the correctness does not matter because the purpose of the reporting is for me to see and correct your solutions if ever they are wrong. Right? So that is the plan for your grouping. This one is not yet sure, but I also plan to do a like an individual recitation aside from the group. But this is not sure because my idea here or the how I did it last time is I used a wheel of names which contains all your names twice. Okay, the wheel of names has your names two times. Okay, so when do I plan to use this? For example, I have a discussion and I have an example. Okay, so the example problem, instead of just talking about it on my own, I will ask someone to help me discuss the example based on my discussion. Okay, again, the correctness of the answer does not matter. The important part is the interaction. Okay, uh, so if you're able to participate, for example, you are chosen, luckily chosen by the wheel of names. If you are able to participate, your name will be removed from the wheel. So since you have two names in the will, then you need to be called out twice before your name can be removed from the will, before you are safe from recitation. Okay? If you are unable to speak, or maybe you're absent, or I am not happy with your response, then your name will be kept in the will. So you still have a chance to be called out next time. Okay? If by the end of the semester, your name is not in the will anymore, meaning you have been called out for recitation twice, that's why your name is not there anymore, you get 100%. If you have only one name remaining, then you get 50%. If you have two names remaining, you get 0%. Okay? And this will be part of your exercises, which will be one equivalent problem set. Right? So this is my idea. However, I am not sure if it will be realistic. Okay? Because if your names are in the wheel twice, for example, if there are 45 of you, it means there are 90 names in the roulette or in the wheel of names. And I am doubting if I if there will be an opportunity for recitation 90 times throughout the semester. Because it means for you all of you to get a chance to speak twice, I need to have a recitation opportunity more than 90 times. Because it's unfair naman if by the end of the semester, you still have two names in the wheel because I did not, because you are just lucky that the wheel did not choose your name. Diba? So it's not your fault. It's not your fault, so it will be unfair for you to get a zero. Okay, so those things I'm still considering. So I don't know if this is realistic. But if you have did something similar in your past subjects, please share so we can adapt. So this one, the individual recitation is not sure yet, but this one, the grouping, will be is real. Okay, this is real. It will be pushed through because it I have used it already before in my past semester. So this is feasible and realistic. So we will choose the recitation, individual recitation one. It's not sure if this is real or fake. But any questions or suggestions in, about these groupings and recitation? Okay? Because if I need to give you 90 times to recite, then maybe I need to have a recitation every other slide of my discussion just to give you enough opportunity to use all the names on the wheel. So I don't know. Maybe it's difficult also to do on my part. So let's see. Okay. So next, I want to present to you some applications of fluid mechanics. Okay, so we are studying fluid mechanics not only for the concepts, not only for the academic learning, but also for the possible careers that you may encounter or see or find in the future in terms you want to explore this field. Okay? Aerodynamics is one of the major applications of fluid mechanics. Two usual applications are missile aerodynamics and automobile aerodynamics. Missile aerodynamics, missiles, bullets, arrows, usually when you fire them, they have a tendency to curve downward because of gravity. So if they curve downward, then they will miss their target. So to counter this, it's important to have good missile or bullet or arrow design such that it can resist the pull of gravity and travel in a straight line. So the design of that is under aerodynamics. Automobile aerodynamics is concerned with the design of vehicles or automotives to have aerodynamic properties, which means if you look at cars, they have a similar style. very curved front, not so much corners. Okay, so that is not only for aesthetics but also for aerodynamics, especially sports car, which usually need to travel very, very fast. Aerodynamics is important for them to reach their 0 to 60 speed in the smallest amount of time. Okay. Other applications are high-speed trains. For example, the Shinkansen in Japan, which travels at very, very high speed. So it is important to check the aerodynamic design of the train to prevent uh, derailing of the train because of the high speed. Wind turbines also need fluid mechanics for the design of the blades of the wind mills or turbines so that they can capture the most amount of wind to efficiently spin the electric generators. Wind studies are also done. One application is for the smoke from a stack in a for example in a refinery. Okay, the stack in the refinery is kind of the exhaust. It's similar to the exhaust of the car, but placed in a refinery. So the waste products of the refinery are burnt or disposed in the stack. So you want to do a wind study to check if the smoke from the stack will not fly or will not travel to a location which is residential or has a lot of schools or a lot of hospitals. Okay, so that no one will be exposed to the harmful gases. Same with cities. Sometimes developers will do a wind or pollution dispersion study to check if the how the wind patterns in the city moves. For example, you do not if you are a high-end condominium, you do not want to build your condominium in a location where most of the gases from nearby power plants or nearby industrial plants will travel. Or maybe the pollution for EDSA will travel to that location. So that will lower the value of your property. So you want to build on a location that's away from this pollution and nearby natural sources of clean air like forests, water bodies of water, etc. So there are wind studies being done to check how the wind behaves or moves over a city to know this. I think more relatable applications for us mechanical engineers, automotive engineers, aeronautics engineers are in propellers, in fans, and in jet engine propulsion systems. So propellers, the blades needs to be designed to maximize the push in the water for uh, ships and water vessels. Fans, in general, for example, the fans in our laptops, in our computers, not only do we want them to blow the maximum amount of air for cooling, but we also want them to be as silent as possible. So that involves fluid mechanics, the shape or the angle of the blades in laptop fan. If you try to open your laptops, if you know how, then you would see that they are composed of very, very, very small, thin blades. They prefer smaller blades, higher quantity of smaller blades rather than less quantity of big blades. So I think that is the trend in terms of laptop fan design. Jet engine propulsions, the engines of airplanes. It is also important to have the maximum inlet of air for the most efficient combustion in the combustion chamber. Okay, so the design of those fins in a jet engine are the scope of fluid mechanics. And in sports also, oops. In sports also, ski jumping, golf. If you would notice the ball of the golf, it has dimples. So the reason for that is fluid mechanics or aerodynamics. Swimming. Some people say you have to hold your fingers together. Some people say you have to open your fingers separate to have the fastest speed or the best water resistance. So that is studied or researched through fluid mechanics. In football or soccer also, do you notice when you watch football, sometimes when they kick the ball do a curve path or in Tagalog, pumepektus yung bola. Okay? So yung pagpektus ng bola, it does not happen only in Pokemon Go, it also happens in real life during sports. Because that is a way to confuse the other team and cause the ball to curve around the defense. Okay, so the way they kick the ball and the ball will create a spin causes that curve, and that behavior of the ball as it travels in the air is also studied through fluid mechanics. Okay, cycling. If you ride a bike, then it's important that your helmet, your clothes, your bike are able to slide in the air, especially so that will not you do not need a lot of force or effort to move forward. Okay, so the design of helmets, the design of bikes, even the material of the dry fit shirts of cyclists undergo fluid mechanics processes or research to check their aerodynamics properties. And of course, last example here, race cars. If you watch F1 or Formula One, you would notice the vehicles there, the design of the vehicles, they are very, very low. They are very, very thin, kind of a teardrop design. So that teardrop design in a very, very low body is the reason for that is the aerodynamics or the fluid mechanics behavior of the car because of the or the cart because you want the cart to have the because this is a race, you want the cart to have maximum acceleration at the least amount of time. So you want to break through the wind or have the very, very small wind resistance at all costs. Okay, so these are just some of the many applications. And most of these, all the different applications, most of the time they start with simulation. And usual software that is being used for simulation is ANSYS Fluent from ANSYS and SolidWorks. Okay? Through this software, you can model your object or your system and then run it through a through a simulation to check the behavior of fluids with your design. Okay? This is a very, very efficient and is a very effective technology to check design even before production. Okay? So before, when doing this, they have to do prototypes and then test that and check the results. Then if they want to test something else, they have to do another prototype, then run them again in a wind tunnel, then do another results. But now with the advancement in software technology, all of it can be done through software, through simulation. And simulation now is reliable already on a level that is reliable. That is it is accepted already by many companies in the industry and also in publications for academic purposes. Okay? This is also an opportunity actually for you because this is also a possibility to consider when choosing your thesis topic. You just, of course, you still need to have a real world application, real world benefit, but your execution instead of doing the real or prototyping of the design, you can do the simulation Because if you want to change something in the design, you just have to change it in the software and then run it again. So no more costly prototypes or testing every time you need to change something. So this is something that might be possible for thesis topic. I do not know if some of your higher batchmates already doing this, but it's something to consider and try if you have a good topic that is related to fluid mechanics. Okay? And hopefully the panel will accept your topics. So that's the real challenge actually. Okay, so now any questions? Because this would be the last topic in the introduction of fluid mechanics. Okay po. So before we end, I just want to, because yesterday I told you about my behavior or practice of defining the significant digits in your problems. Okay? So I would like to do a revisit of how to count or how to consider significant digits. Okay? So non-zero digits, automatic, they are significant. Okay? Zeros, on the other hand, that's the one that needs to be checked. Zeros in between non-significant digits, zero in between significant digits or zero in between non-zero digits, they are always significant. Okay, so that's always the case. Non-zero and zeros in between, they are always significant. So the challenge now is on the zeros to the left and zeros to the right. Okay? Zeros to the left does not matter if they are before or after the decimal point. They are always not significant. Okay? So when I ask you to show your answer in significant decimal digits, two significant dis- two significant decimal digits, then you will not be considering the leading zero or the first zero after the decimal point because that is not significant. So you still need two significant digits to put to create your final answer. Okay? Zeros at the right side or at the end of your number are always significant. Always. So you will count them towards your target of significant decimal digits. Okay? So the rule, non-zero, significant. Zeros in between, significant. Zeros to the right, significant. Zeros to the left, not significant. So I think it's easy to understand that, hopefully. And to close the lecture and to test then the question feature in the Google Classroom because I have not used it. I have posted a question in your Google Classroom. Same question displayed here. How many of these numbers have five significant digits? Okay, five significant digits. So you have the numbers here. How many of them has five significant digits? So I think what you have to do is go to your classroom, see the question there. It's a multiple choice thing, and select your answer. And then I do not know if there's a submit button or if it's automatic. So, but I believe you will see your question there. Okay. So just pick out how many of these numbers have five significant digits. And once you have submitted your answer in the Google Classroom, then that will be all for today. But remember, you only have 5 minutes to do this. I will only wait 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, I will stop the submissions and whoever answered there would be the final. Right? Once you are, let me start this already. Once you are finished putting your answer in the Google Classroom, then you are free to leave the Google Meet. Okay, so thank you again for attending this session. And next week, Saturday we are online. We'll have a discussion. So that time, that next week we already have calculations related to fluid mechanics. And then Sunday, we will have our first face-to-face. And I think we can have our first quiz also during that day. Okay? So any questions po while we are waiting for 5 minutes? Okay, if no more questions, feel free to answer this question in Google Classroom. And if you are done, you can leave the Google Meet now. And thank you for attending our session today.